evening, welcome. I'm very happy to be here in the Lake Bluff area. I'm Lori Rose. I'm president of the League of Women Voters of the Lake Forest, Lake Bluff area, and I'd like to welcome all of you. For those of you who may not know, the League of Women Voters is a national organization with over 800 chapters and 44 alone in the state of Illinois. We encourage men and women to join, and we are a nonpartisan and nonprofit organization which encourages informed and active participation in government, influences public policy through education and advocacy, and like tonight, we provide forums and debates to help residents learn about the candidates prior to voting. I have this little scarf here because I am very excited and proud that you are all voting for the first time for the Rockland, the Board of Directors for the Rockland Fire Protection District. It's a very exciting milestone, and I encourage you all not only to be here, but to check our website, IllinoisVoterGuide.org, find out more information about the candidates, and to actually go and vote on April 2nd. Before we get started, I'd also like to mention that we have an exciting event coming up down the road at the North Shore Distillery. It's drinks and discussion, and we've welcomed people from the area. We've had Kathy O'Hara, we've had Drew Irvin, we've had Carla Wyckoff. It's a little bit of a sort of chat. You can buy a drink or not. It's at the distillery, so no children allowed. And we get together, there's about a 10 or 20 minute discussion on a particular topic, and then people talk with each other or possibly with the speaker. So this is an event that takes place every month on the first Wednesday from 6:30 to 7:30, and we hope that you'll join us. I'd also like to mention that the League is nonpartisan. We are very strong in that, and our moderator will explain some more rules and how that works. And now I'm very pleased to introduce Kathy Tate Bradish, who will be our moderator. She's a longtime League member since the 80s. She's from Evanston. We always have a moderator out of the area to make sure that there's no local bias. And take it away.
Thanks a lot. Good evening, everyone. We're so pleased that you came out tonight. The weather turned out to not be as nice as we hoped it would, and it's a school night and a work night, so kudos to everyone and to the League for putting this together. And I do want to reiterate, the League of Women Voters, which allows men and has since the 70s, is a completely nonpartisan organization, and we never make statements for or against any candidates. We don't take positions for or against candidates or parties. Your candidates have agreed to the rules for the evening. I'm going to go over them very briefly, and then we'll get started. So first of all, no noisemakers. That includes your phone. That includes my phone. Sorry, I'm going to make sure, yep, it's off. I know you think that your phone is off, but you're going to be super embarrassed when we all turn and look at you when it rings. So this is a really good time to turn your phone off. When I first was moderating, I used to say no pagers, but that probably isn't a problem. No bells, no whistles, you know. No audio, no video, no photos from this forum are allowed to be used by any campaign or by any candidate. The League, I think, is going to tell us afterwards where the video of the event will be posted, right? The candidates are going to have 90 seconds for their introduction. They're going to each have 90 seconds to answer each question. They're going to have 90 seconds at the end to summarize. And I'd like to introduce you to our nice timekeepers. Wave your hands. They're down in front. So they're going to let the candidates know how much time they have left. The stop sign will go up. That doesn't mean that the candidate has done anything wrong unless they take an enormous breath, and we now hear 17 dependent clauses for them to finish their point. So they'll just finish up their point. They're welcome to do that. But one of the reasons that we do debates or forums the way we do is to get as many questions answered as possible. Please save your applause for the end. It's not a contest, and we'll get more questions answered if we wait, if we have applause that's held to the end. Even I know you'll be tempted when your favorite candidate gives their opening statement, no applause. So now, we've got a few questions that came from the League of Women Voters, and the rest of the questions for the forum, that's on you. So I hope you have gotten a lined piece of paper and a pencil. If you haven't, you can put your hand up at any time, or if you've written a question and you've got another question, put your hand up, and one of our runners is going to bring you a card and a pencil if you need it. If you've written a question, put your hand up with the card. Don't worry about disturbing us. The runners are going to wait until there's a little bit of a break. They'll grab it. They're going to bring it over here to what we call card sorters. Yeah, like that. Thanks for the emphasis. And the card sorters are going to be looking for a few things. One is it legible enough that I, standing up here, can read it and figure it out easily? If you've written a good question, I'll tell you this, because not all of us have great penmanship. If you've written a good question and they can decipher it, they're going to copy it for you. But do your best to make it legible for me, that'd be great. Needs to be appropriate for this level of government. So while we might all be waiting with bated breath about opinions on the wall, or whether we should pull out of Syria, just going to be asking questions that your new board members are going to be able to debate, answer, vote on at this level of office. There probably are several hot topics that we might get a number of questions on. If they're substantially similar, one will get asked. If they could be cobbled together to make maybe a longer and more complete question that's part of the same idea, the sorters will do that for me. And then they'll just be bringing the questions up to me as it goes. They'll do a star for me if there's something that they recognize as a really hot issue here that I'm not going to know, to be sure that if I don't get to all the questions, that I get to all of the important questions. I forgot to ask the candidates if you can stay a little bit afterwards, in case people have questions. We're going to end at 8 o'clock.
Sure.
Okay, I'm not sure how long we can have the room, but the candidates can stay a little bit. So if your question doesn't get answered, you'll be able to talk to your candidate. All right, I think that covers it. Now, we have two candidates who are running unopposed, and they're each going to have an opportunity to come up and make their statement to you, so you can also see them, get to know them a little bit. Can you stay afterwards?
Sure.
And also talk to them a little, because they're also going to be voting members for sure on the new board, but they are running unopposed, so they're not going to be answering questions. So we're going to start with Mr. Anderson, who is a candidate for a 2-year term, and he'll come on down and tell you what he has to say.
How you doing? My name's Dave Anderson, 31-year resident of Knollwood. Raised 3 daughters in this community. Past Knollwood Fire Department member and a retired firefighter paramedic from the Lake Forest Fire Department. Purpose of being a trustee is just to make sure that the intergovernmental agreement that we have is adhered to, and if any problems arise, make sure we find solutions to them, and just always keep our eyes and ears open for any other possible things that are out there to better the community and the people that are served by the Rockland Fire Protection District trustees. And that's about it.
Thank you.
90 seconds.
Mr. Malinowski, who is unopposed for a 6-year term.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Marcin Malinowski, resident of the district, specifically Knollwood, for the past 9 years. I previously volunteered on the Knollwood Fire Department. Started in 2012, volunteered all the way until the department shut down in October of last year. Currently, I do volunteer on the Lake Bluff Fire Department. However, I'd like to continue to be involved in the community here that I live in. Since I can no longer volunteer on the Knollwood Fire Department, I'm running for trustee of the Rockland Fire Protection District so that I can help to ensure we are provided with the best level of fire and EMS service possible. I know it's going to be a learning experience for me, and so hopefully with the community's help and patience, we can work together and maintain our district. I'd like to thank the residents for voting on the referendum that helped to make this happen, for us to vote in our own trustees. Maybe in coming elections we can have a little bit more participation since there's 2 candidates running unopposed. I'd like to also thank the League of Women Voters for putting this on, volunteering their time, and helping us to have this forum where we can have a question and answer session. So, thank you again.
Thank you. So I think we could applaud right now for these. Done for the moment. So now we're going to start with the main event. Mr. Russ is going to go first, and he's going to give us his opening statement.
Thank you. My name is Don Russ. I'm a CPA and MBA. I taught economics part-time at CLC when I was a full-time trader at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. I've been involved in Lake Bluff and Knollwood activities since the 90s when I started the video broadcast of the village board meetings. It was the first government to be broadcast that way, and now they all are, so I'm very proud of that initiative. I was also involved early in Knollwood Neighbors. I created their first website. That was before Nikki developed such a great skill with that. Fast forward to the present, boy, time flies. I was recently president of the Lake Bluff School Caucus and clerk of the Shields Township. My website is fire.pxxq.com.
Thank you. Ms. Bernstein.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Amy Bernstein, and I am proud to be running for the Rockland Fire Protection District. More than 2 years ago, there was a referendum to let us elect our own trustees, and I was one of the residents who voted yes. We won that referendum, but we lost our fire department anyway. And like a lot of people here, I watched that happen, and I was so frustrated because there was nothing we could do about it. The board didn't care what we thought. So things didn't turn out the way we might have wanted, but I believe there is still work to be done. The board can try to improve the contract with Libertyville and Lake Forest. We can collect information to measure the services being provided. We can find out what the real expenses of the district will be going forward. We've heard everything from people saying our taxes will go down to saying the district will go bankrupt. I have lived in Knollwood for more than 30 years, and I'm raising my family here. Years ago, I was on the Knollwood Fire Department, and I know what it's like to be on the fire service. I am running for everyone who lives in the district. I want to be a part of a board that will listen to the residents and work for their best interests. I want to say thank you to the League of Women Voters for giving me a chance to tell you why I'm running. I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. So now, Ms. and remember, as tempting as it is, no applause till the end. So Ms. Bernstein is going to take the first question first, and it will become clear to you after a bit, but each candidate will get an opportunity to first bite at the apple every other question. So this seems, from what little I know, to be getting right to it. Ms. Bernstein, what do you think of the new contract?
I feel that things could be looked at and could be improved on. But that's something, you know, we as a board would have to decide together.
Okay, let me do a follow-up question. Is there any one thing specific that you've noticed in the contract, if you've had a chance to look at it, that you'd like to address?
Well, I have, and I actually have some information in here. Can I read off of here?
Sure, in the next 60 seconds.
Okay, well, they talk about having, you know, providing, they will, to the best of their ability and reasonably and operationally practical, provide such services on the same basis that they provide for their own community. And that to me is just very vague, because if, for some reason, if they don't follow with that, there's no penalties in here. And that, I think, needs to be looked at.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Russ.
Well, following up on that, the Libertyville Fire Department and the Lake Forest Fire Department are both ISO 3. I think that means Insurance Service Organization. It's an outfit that rates risks for insurance companies so they can charge the right rate for their premiums. These two fire departments are both ISO 3. That's a very high rating, so if they provide for Knollwood the same service that they provide in their own backyard, that's good news for us. I think that the contract is a good deal. Right now, or most recently, the budget for running the department on our own was about $650,000 per year. The contract is $450,000 per year. That's a $200,000 per year savings. And that's a savings every year that benefits fewer than 1,000 families in our small district. So I think that taxes are going to be going down because we have a smaller budget and and the district is going to be cash rich because we've sold the equipment. We're probably going to sell this building a lot. So that's good news to the taxpayers.
Thank you.
And I have a minute, I have a few seconds left. Let me say ISO 3, Knollwood homeowners should check with their insurance companies to see if they are entitled to a lower rate.
Thank you. So Mr. Russ takes this question first. What is your top priority and how will you address it if you win?
The top priority as a trustee, the mission of the district is threefold. It's just fire protection service, ambulance service, and those services at the right price. The contract comprehends all three of those things. We're all set. We've got a bargain price locked in for the next 20 years, which allows for inflation. The primary role of the board going forward is stewardship, making sure that they live up to their deal. The Libertyville and Lake Forest live up to their side of the contract. I don't imagine that they wouldn't because they're first-rate departments, but that's the main role of the job. In fact, I would expect this to be one of the most boring public service jobs ever if everything goes as I expect it would.
Thank you. Ms. Bernstein, same question.
Please repeat that.
Of course. Now that you've had an opportunity to hear all of us, is each of us loud enough or do we need to be working a little harder because we don't have mics?
No, I think it's good.
Fine.
Everybody's okay. All right. What is your top priority as trustee and how will you address it if you win?
The residents' best interests are my top priority. And I will always listen to their questions, comments, concerns, and answer questions that they have.
Thank you. Ms. Bernstein, you get this question first. How do you feel about the closing of the station?
Well, I was not happy with it, especially with how things went with that, and residents weren't taken in consideration. We weren't listened to. So it made me very unhappy, and I was very frustrated with the way things happened with that.
Thank you. Mr. Russ?
Yeah, I wasn't involved in either side in any way in all of the 2 years that led up to the final decision. I don't have a feeling about it. I was asked, the question is about my feelings. I don't have a feeling about it. At this point going forward, what we've got is a contract. We've got a deal. We can get out of the contract at any time if Libertyville or Lake Forest fails to live up to their end of the deal. The board is going to do careful monitoring of what they're doing, and I don't anticipate that the bad feelings will continue. I understand that a lot of people have nostalgia for the fire department. It was created by guys coming home from World War II, but that was back at a time when Knollwood had a population 3 times bigger than it is now. The district at less than 1 square mile was diseconomic because, as I understand it, because the firefighting business is an all fixed cost business. They're big economies of scale. So going forward, I think that it's going to be all right.
Thank you. Mr. Russ, what would you do? What would you do to hold Lake Forest and Libertyville accountable for service according to the new contract? Let me try doing that again in English. What would you do to hold Lake Forest and Libertyville accountable for service according to the new contract?
As I say on my website, I think that the board should post every month all of the calls and the response time for each call. The medical calls, which are probably going to be the dominant use of district and also the fire calls. I think the response time is the key measure of performance. This is just a matter of openness and transparency. There shouldn't be any question about what the status is in terms of response time. The two fire chiefs are very friendly and open and cooperative, and I look forward to working with them. I think we just keep our eyes open and make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Thank you. Ms. Bernstein?
I'm sorry, can you please repeat that
Sure.
again for me?
What would you do to hold Lake Forest and Libertyville accountable for service according to the new contract?
Well, I feel that the board and I would have to talk with all the residents in the district and hear their input and their experiences that they have had maybe with Lake Forest and Libertyville, and look over the contract and make decisions together as a board.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Bernstein, have you personally attended regular monthly Rockland Fire Department meetings during 2018?
Yes, I have.
They're probably getting at, give us a ballpark number that you've attended. More than one, fewer than 100?
Oh, I'd say about roughly 7, 8 maybe. I didn't keep track, but I did.
Thank you. Mr. Russ?
I haven't attended any. I am familiar with the operation of government, with the process of how a budget translates into a tax levy and ultimately a line on your real estate tax. I have, of course, been involved in the Lake Bluff School Caucus, the Lake Bluff Village Board, the Shields Township. I'm familiar with parliamentary procedure. That concludes my answer.
Thank you. People, I only have a couple more questions here. This seemed like a burning issue when I read the one newspaper article that I managed to read before I came down here. So if you've got a question and you don't have a card, put your hand up, please, and we'll get a card to you and then write the question. Now you kind of see how it's going here, right? We'll get at least a few more. All right, so and while we do that, this next question goes to Mr. Russ first. How will you address the decreased quality of service and the increase in costs without any performance standards?
I don't know how to answer that because it's based on questionable premises. Would you repeat the question, please?
I'll repeat the question, and then if you want to redefine the premises, go right ahead. So start this again at 0, okay? Because this could be confusing. I don't know. How will you address the decreased quality of service and the increase in costs without any performance standards?
The cost is going to be less. We have a good deal, $200,000 less than the cost of us doing it for ourselves, and that price is locked in for 20 years. I'd appreciate order, Madam.
Folks, order, and raise your hand for a card.
There's no question about the arithmetic. $650,000 minus $450,000 is $200,000 per year less expense of running the department than what we were able to do for ourselves. And the question also presumes that quality will diminish. I don't see any reason to believe that. Lake Forest has a budget of $6.5 million for their fire department alone, not the whole city. Libertyville's fire department alone is $8.5 million. We had a budget of $500,000. These are huge departments. They have their act together. I don't expect that there's going to be a diminishment of service. These are two ISO 3 departments.
Thank you. Ms. Bernstein?
I'm sorry, can you please repeat that?
Yeah, actually, I'm happy to always repeat. Why don't I just do that? How will you address the decreased quality of service and the increase in costs without any performance standards?
The decreased quality of service
let me, with my out-of-district understanding or lack thereof of this question, I think that this question is assuming that there will be a decreased quality of service and is assuming that the costs are going to increase, and evidently feels that there aren't performance standards available. Do your best.
I'm sorry, I just don't know if I really understand the question.
I'll read it one more time, but it could simply be that these are assumptions that are not widely held, okay? So, assuming that you think that the quality of service might decrease, and assuming that from what you read or believe, the costs will increase, how are you going to address that problem?
Well, I'm not sure about the service decreasing. We just need to give the contract time and give them time to see how things pan out with the contract. And actually, the prices do go up every year with the contract.
Okay? Thank you. Next question, Ms. Bernstein, you have this first. What are the most important personal qualities for an elected trustee of the Rockland Fire Protection District? Most important personal qualities.
I strongly believe transparency.
Would you like to elaborate in your remaining 87 seconds?
Well, transparency, you know, always involve the residents of the district. Listen to them, answer their questions, and just have their best interests. One of your top priorities. So we want to do the best thing for our residents.
Thank you. Mr. Russ?
Can we repeat the question, please?
Sure. What are the most important personal qualities for an elected trustee of the Rockland Fire Protection District?
I'd say diligence. The trustees need to be willing to put the energy in to make sure that the contract is managed properly, and be willing to answer email properly, promptly that they receive, and otherwise respond. I think Ms. Bernstein's quite right about that. She's also quite right that the price of the contract does go up for inflation only. The contract year ending in 2021, there's a one-time increase of 10% because it's $450 for that initial period. And then after that, it only goes up with the CPI. So she's correct that the price does go up. But of course, inflation would have affected the budget of the Rockland district. If we would have had a $650,000 budget, over time that would have gone up for inflation as well. So the $200,000 difference that I keep talking about is real and permanent.
Thank you. Mr. Russ, you take this first. How can the district get out of the contract if they need to? Are there any penalties?
There are no penalties. We can get out any time if Libertyville or Lake Forest fails. That starts from time zero. If we are in the contract for 10 years, we don't need a reason anymore to drop the contract. After 10 years, we can drop it without cause. In other words, it's not necessary for Libertyville or Lake Forest to fail in some way. We can just say goodbye. We give them notice and we're gone. There's no penalty. There is a notice required. If we go the whole 20 years and we're happy with it, then it goes year to year after that with the same CPI adjustment. So this could be a 100-year program that we're entering into, or it could be terminated within the first 10 years for cause, or it could be terminated after the first 10 years without cause.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Bernstein?
Yes?
How can the district get out of the contract if they need to? Are there any penalties?
Well, they can't just terminate at any point in time if they want to. They can terminate any time after the 10th anniversary of the agreement. And they have to give a 2 years notice prior to that. Okay, and they can terminate the agreement for just cause, meaning legal sufficient reason for termination, or the agreement except for non-payment. But once again, you have to wait till a 10-year anniversary, and you have to give 2 years notice prior to terminating the contract.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Bernstein, you take this question first. If response time is the key metric to measure, yet no metric is specifically included in the contract, what will the board establish as acceptable?
I think we, the board, would have to sit down and figure that out together, make decisions as a board.
Okay? Mr. Russ?
What's the question again, please?
If response time is the key metric to measure, yet no metric is specifically included in the contract, what will the board establish as acceptable?
I don't know how to set an acceptable response time. I think we have to know what it is. I think the response time will undoubtedly be excellent, since we have a big fire building right here in Knollwood that's not this one. Just on Atkinson, just a very short distance, a couple of blocks from the sanctuary, very quick access to the northern part of Knollwood, which is their area of responsibility. There are 2 big fire trucks and 2 ambulances. And these are not the basic life support ambulances, these are the advanced life support ambulances that are not attended by EMTs, they're attended to by AEMTs, advanced EMTs, that can do critical care right in your driveway. This is a wonderful thing that we have. I think the response time will be very good. From the north and the south, we have 4 ambulances in Lake Forest at their 2 stations just to the south. So we have to collect the data first. We have to know what the response times are for fire and for ambulance. And once we know it, then we can make a judgment about it. The contract provides that they should do a good job, and I expect that they would.
Thank you. And I'll just take this moment to remind you, you could ask questions, and to remind our candidates that I cannot vote in this district, so you should be speaking to your audience. Mr. Russ, you take this question first. What are your thoughts on our recent fire at the old McCormick's building and the order of department's responses?
The order of the department's responses was first Lake Bluff, which is a wonderful testament to volunteer fire departments, because this was at 18 minutes past 2 o'clock that dispatch put out the alarm to Lake Bluff, Lake Forest, and Libertyville. Lake Bluff and Libertyville responded with trucks, and Lake Forest with an ambulance. This was just incidental to the question. I'll notice that this was very unusual. This was a structure fire. It was a lightning strike. It happened to be an uninhabited building, and so the firemen were not aggressive because there was not life at risk, and that's why the fire was allowed to burn big. I talked to my neighbor, past member of this board, Tim Hughes, a few months ago, and I asked him how many, and he's a lifelong public safety professional, I asked him how many structure fires Knollwood has per year, and he said 3 or 4. So the McCormick's incident was very unusual.
Thank you. Ms. Bernstein, what are your thoughts on our recent fire at the old McCormick's building and the order of the department's responses?
Well, I know Lake Bluff arrived first, which was good, and contrary to what Mr. Russ said with allowing it to burn big because there were no lives at stake, that you just don't let a fire burn big. It should have been, I mean, you fight it, you put it out, and even if, what? Talk to me. You be aggressive as if there were people in the building.
Okay. Ms. Bernstein, you take this question first, and no help or hindrance from the audience, please. Are you concerned the yearly increase eventually will inflate the cost to more than what the district can afford? How do you plan to mitigate that possibility?
I'm sorry, I honestly not sure how to answer that question. But I will do research on it and get back to you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Russ?
My short answer is no. The inflation is the only thing that causes the contract to go up, and inflation is just the world we live in. Hopefully there'll be wage inflation. Price inflation is accurately reflected by the Consumer Price Index. Carl Snowland made an interesting point when this was being discussed that I've read about. He was concerned that the district as a whole might not be able to pay this contract since it's a fixed price, and perhaps the district population would become half for some reason. Maybe they'll find lead in the soil and everybody will move away or something, I don't know. I don't see any inability on the horizon in our ability to pay this $450,000 contract. The district has the authority to tax. There's 1,000 families, they'll be able to pay, but they shouldn't pay any more than they have to because we're a small district, and for most of us, not counting schools, which is 2/3 of our real estate tax bill, of that remaining 1/3, the Rockland tax district is probably the biggest line item on your real estate tax bill. So, because there's so few of us, it's fewer than 1,000 families. So this is important. It's not greedy or selfish to be concerned about tax levels. This is compassion for the people who pay the bills around here and make the fire district possible.
Thank you. Mr. Russ, if the building levy is reduced, do you feel the budget of $530,000 will be adequate?
If the building, what? The building?
The building, I'm assuming tax levy?
I don't know what a building tax levy is.
The mortgage on the mortgage on the building.
The mortgage on the building.
The mortgage on the building.
Mhm.
And, okay, what's the rest of the question?
If the mortgage on the building is reduced, does that make more sense? If the building levy is reduced, do you feel the budget of $530,000 will be adequate?
Presumably, the mortgage on this building is not more than the value of the building, so it's not a burden. The district needs to sell the building. It'd be irresponsible for the district to hold on to $1 million asset for decades and on the possibility that we might use it in the future. The building should be sold, and maybe that's sad, but that's the responsible thing for managing the district properly. The 530, I don't know what that number is. The contract amount is 450. The budget should be probably lower than 450 since we have cash inflow from the selling of the engines and the Jaws of Life and the other equipment.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Bernstein, if the building levy or mortgage is reduced, do you feel the budget of $530,000 will be adequate?
Again, I'm sorry, I'm just not sure how to answer that. I'm not too familiar with the levy as of right now.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Ms. Bernstein, you get this next question first. This will probably be a pretty short answer. It is not meaningful to me. Could you please tell us where you live in the district? Lake Forest, parentheses, south of the tracks, Libertyville, parentheses, north of the tracks.
South of the tracks. So I'm in the Lake Forest district.
Okay. Mr. Russ?
I'm north of the tracks. We bought our house from Carl and Nikki 20 years ago. It's a wonderful house. Thank you very much for that.
Did you ever find our daughter's lost beanie baby?
No, I haven't found it yet.
She still misses it.
Thank you. All right, something else that I'm puzzling with here, but if it's not meaningful, perhaps we can elaborate. Are you both familiar with the proposal that LB presented to the RFPD? That I've got. What were your thoughts or feelings on the proposal? This is from Mr.
Is
Rest.
this about the used ambulance? Perhaps it is.
The
There was-
proposal that LB presented, is that about the
That Lake
used
Bluff
ambulance?
presented before the contract went through
Lake
with Lake
Bluff.
Forest and Libertyville.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. If this is about the,
The Lake Bluff proposal that was given to the Rockland Fire Protection District before they voted to go with Libertyville and Lake Forest.
right, as I understand it, there was a suggestion at one point that Lake Bluff Fire Department, volunteer fire department, and Knollwood would go together and buy a used ambulance and cobble together something. We're talking about the past, this is a made decision, but my opinion of that is that it wouldn't have been a very good idea. The 4 ambulances from Lake Forest, the 2 from Libertyville, they have the ability to transmit to the emergency room a 12-lead EKG. So the emergency room doctor can effectively do triage before you even leave your driveway in the ambulance. This is remarkable. It means that you might go right directly, for example, to cardiac catheterization instead of the emergency room. This is high-tech stuff, and for buying a used ambulance and trying to reinvent the wheel on ourselves, I don't think would have been a prudent approach. I think that we've got great service from these 6 ambulances that serve us now.
Thank you. Ms. Bernstein, are you familiar with the proposal that Lake Bluff presented to the RFPD? What were your thoughts about that proposal?
Yes, I was familiar with it, and I thought it was a great proposal. Besides, maintaining the status quo, Lake Bluff would have definitely been a good choice.
Thank you. Ms. Bernstein, half of Knollwood is served by Lake Forest from a station much farther away than the Libertyville station. Are you concerned about a difference in response times?
Yes, I definitely am.
Feel free to elaborate.
Well, with Lake Forest being further away, it will give you a longer response time, and, seconds matter in a life or death situation. If you have a young child who's not breathing, or you have someone who's having chest pain, you want them to get there as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Mr. Russ?
Yes, response time is what we keep coming back to. That's certainly very important. If we keep these records carefully going forward and we know how Libertyville is responding and how Lake Forest is responding, we can change the deal, we can change the arrangement and utilize Libertyville for all of Knollwood. We've had Libertyville for 4 years and they've done a fine job. They do about 150 ambulance calls in Knollwood per year. The board would have to consider whether we would want to use Libertyville Fire for all of Knollwood instead of just ambulance for all of Knollwood. But that's, we're just speculating now. The important thing is to keep careful records of response time so we can make wise judgments.
Thank you. Mr. Russ, recently a Knollwood neighbor had symptoms of a possible heart attack. He called the number that was given, but had such slow response time, he called 911, but was transferred. He ended up driving himself to Lake Forest Hospital. Is this acceptable? I think we can take it as a given. This is not a yes or no question. So, do you have a suggestion about how that might be improved?
I don't understand how that could have happened. You dialed 911 and you didn't get the 911 dispatcher.
He called the number that was given.
Given to him by whom?
I don't know. Is there a like a non-emergency?
It's a much longer story than that.
It's a
Yeah,
longer story than that. Okay, so maybe we won't address the longer story right now, and the person or people who have the concern, be sure that you come up to the candidates afterwards and explain it if you wish to. I'm going to give a quick answer. I think that this is not such a quick answer. There's a question that might be on a lot of people's minds. Would you please explain why 2 of the candidates run unopposed, 2 candidates are competing? Well, the candidates have different responsibilities. So candidates are unopposed. If no one also jumped into that, there are 3 different lengths of service: 2 years, 4 years, and 6 years, so that going forward, you always have a turnover. Just like we do with the Senate, it's every 6 years, and so every 2 years, approximately 1/3 of our senators are elected. So because this is new, and you're just starting, you're starting with a 2-year term, a 4-year term, and a 6-year term, and as it happened, only 1 candidate stood forward for the 2-year term and the 6-year term, but 2 are competing for the 4-year term. So let me just clarify that, because this kind of stuff can get kind of sticky, and I'm gonna ask the last question here, people. What makes you, who are we on? Mr. Rust. What makes you want to be a trustee? So that's going to give you probably a little bit of extra time into your summary as well. What makes you want to be a trustee?
I believe that I have a disciplined mind and enough experience to understand what's important as Rockland goes through this transition. I think that the precedents that the board sets in these first years are probably going to be the practices that will be followed for the whole duration of the contract. And I think that I have enough understanding of the process of local government to be able to help set sound precedents.
Thank you. Ms. Bernstein. What makes you want to be a trustee?
Oh, I want to be a trustee because I want to be here for all the residents who live in the district. I want to make sure I have their best interest always a top priority. I have a good understanding of how we got here to dissolve the Knollwood Fire Department. I'm familiar with the contract, and there are things in there that can be changed to better protect our district.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to go to the summations. Each candidate gets 90 seconds. We do it in reverse order of the opening. And so, Ms. Bernstein, you will start first.
Okay. Thank you once again for everyone for coming out tonight. And thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this debate and giving voters an opportunity to hear from the candidates directly. In closing, I want to remind voters of what's at stake in this election. For most of us, nothing is more important than protecting our home and our family. Even though we have lost our own fire department, we are still being served by men and women who care about doing their jobs, who are doing their jobs well and want to give us the best services that they can. But there are no guarantees. The contract now in place doesn't have a way to define or measure what's good enough. It divides the district in half at the railroad tracks and allows for different response times between the two halves. And for a contract that doesn't expire until 2038, the true long-term costs are unknown. These are the reasons why the trustees you elect in April will have an important role in the future of our community. Marson, Dave, and I already know we can work well together. We've been paying attention to the operations of the district for years. We all have fire service experience, but different perspectives. I am the only candidate who lives in the south of the tracks, where residents may have different experiences with emergency services. I want to be part of this board that will have your best interest my top priority. I'm asking for your vote in this election. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Russ.
Thank you, Mrs. Tate Radish, for your good work at a difficult job. I'd also like to thank Carl and Nikki. They're great people. Nikki has recently served on the high school board. Carl serves on this board. And their creation of Knollwood Neighbors is a wonderful thing. It's truly a grassroots neighborhood organization. that's neighbors looking out for neighbors, neighbors taking care of each other. That's what Knollwood Neighbors is. That's not what the Rockland District is. The Rockland Tax District is an institution with taxing authority for an important vital mission. It's not to say that the board of the Rockland Tax District doesn't care about their neighbors. Certainly they do. What they care about is they care about the guy who calls up and says, help me, my house is on fire, my dog's still in there. Or more likely, since most calls are for medical, perhaps, help me, my father's collapsed and I don't think he's breathing. These are very vital, important things this is serious business for serious people. But there's a third constituency, which does not call 911. That's the guy who sits up late and he says, gosh, principal, interest, insurance, and taxes, if I don't pay all this, I'm facing foreclosure. The Rockland Fire Board must have compassion for the people who foot the bills as well. That's my opinion. Thank you. I'll see you in April 2nd.
Thank you. Everybody hang on for a sec. I'd like all 4 candidates in the room to stand up, please. All right, now, great big round of applause. Thank you. So I'm very impressed. You've got people who have paid attention. They are gutsy. Every single person in this room knows how difficult it is these days to put yourself out there and run. And so I think you're well served and are probably very pleased from what you heard from the candidates. Now, though, I'd like all of the audience members to stand. Just indulge me. Stand up, please. And candidates, give them a round of applause. Thank you. The League of Women Voters' mission is an informed and engaged electorate, and one of our favorite things to do is to have local candidate forums like this one. And one of the most important things that our citizens can do is show up for these forums. Your local candidates are the people that you know, that you can find and hunt down when you've got a question. They're answerable to you, and they affect our lives in ways sometimes much greater than some of the bigger offices. So thank you for coming out on a school night and a work night for this really important and innovative and new board that your community has created. Now I'd like everyone from the League of Women Voters to stand up, please. Come on. Come on, everybody who's a member of the League. Thank you. One of the things we like to say is we roll up our sleeves and do the hard work of democracy. Not that it's that hard of work, but I just have a little list here that I want to read to you. Because you came here, the League of Women Voters got the venue, they got the cards, they remembered the pencils, they brought the time cards, they had a stopwatch or probably these days a smartphone, found timekeepers, card sorters, card runners, they made the name tents. I can't tell you how many times those get forgotten. They made the name tents, they got the chairs, they did the publicity, they got pitchers of water and cups for everybody and not wasteful bottled water. Thank you very much. They found a moderator to come in from another town. League of Women Voters is a member organization. It's very reasonably priced, and leagues need members. And this is the kind of thing that leagues do. They also do things like train us to be moderators and go to other towns. We register voters. So your League of Women Voters is important. You're lucky to have one that serves this area, that can put on a forum for your area. Election day is April 2nd. I'm assuming I don't have to exhort anyone in this room to vote, but friends do not let friends stay home on election day unless they've early voted, and you might know somebody who needs a ride to the polls, so you could think about that as well. Obviously, for a small election like this, a few people could really turn the tide. The video is going to be available. Do we know where and when?
Don't know when.
On our website, which is www.lwv-
No. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm wrong.
lwv.lflb.org. And also, if you're interested in joining, there's membership information. You can join online or you can print out the form. We'd love to have more members. We welcome men and women.
And if you didn't get the website, put in League of Women Voters of Lake Forest, Lake Bluff, and you'll find the website. You're going to be able to become members online. And remember, men and women, anybody of voting age can be a member.
Actually, above 16.
Anybody above 16, thank you. Still say 35. Look at this. It's so important for our young people to see examples like this. So I thank you all very much, and grab those candidates and ask them any questions that you still have. Thank you.
Thank you.